Check, check. Yeah. Thank you so much for that warm welcome, and I think delighted to be here amongst a wonderful crowd, that too in my home city. It's a first time for me to be amongst such wonderful people from Calcutta because other events that I've attended have been away from home. So lovely to be here. I think to give us a head start into what we're going to discuss and whom we're chatting with, I'd like to give a brief introduction so that we have more context. So Suhas here, apart from being a dear friend, is one of the most prevalent and distinguished product builders in the ecosystem. If he were in a room in Bangalore, I could tell you with certainty that 90% of the room would know him. But considering that we're in Calcutta, to give you a brief preview, very quickly, Suhas has built one of the most successful product communities in Asia to the tune of 150,000 members. It's called The Product Folks, and it's a community of product builders from across the globe. And to also give you an idea of what he's done in product building, he's built Indistractable, which is a productivity application which has grown to 10,000 organic downloads as two founders. So I think this is going to be a lovely conversation. We're going to decode how to build a winning product launch, right? And launches are very interesting, right? They're not what they used to be in the earlier days, because earlier days you had a restricted consumer set, you had a non-concentrated market, and everything that you would do on a large scale would be considered to be a product launch, right? But before, since we're in the new age set of products, let's dive deeper into how to get there. So Suhas, to get us started, if you can give us a preview of one layer before, right? Before we get to what builds a winning successful product launch, what does a winning product even mean, right? So if you can give us a head start there, I think that'll be super helpful.
Perfect. Thanks so much. It's a super kind intro and lovely to be in this city. I think first time for me in Kolkata, lovely audience here. I think the question is very loaded, so I'll probably try breaking that down. But I hope everyone's been having a great day so far. On winning products, honestly, I think having been building products on the 0 to 1 side, having been building products for one of the largest companies, one of the largest FMCG companies in the world, this was across Europe. What I've realized, and also been chatting with tons of startup founders in India, one thing I've realized is it's an iterative process. I don't think there's a secret sauce per se, but I think there is playbooks. And in fact, I think while I was waiting for this session, I realized everyone's been given a playbook, right? So I think on winning products, how I like to take it is top 3 points in general, how I'd like to distill this out. First up, try finding out whether the product you are building is perfect for the market. Oftentimes what happens, and especially in consumer products, we try building products with a personal itch, right? You might realize, okay, hey, there is a problem that, and very successful products, right? But can you find more people who have a similar itch? And that's where your market grows, right? This is from some of the biggest companies across the globe, right? Take the example of Airbnb. Started off with Brian Chesky figuring out that, hey, we aren't able to find a room in New York, right? They went on then to figure out, okay, hey, we will probably just rent out our space. Realize, okay, there are more people who will be looking out for something very similar. Started out with a very tiny experiment, even without building a platform themselves, right? Built it out on Craigslist back then. Realized there was tons of demand and started iteratively building it. It wasn't overnight, right? Very similar examples of what we've seen in India. So I think that would be step number 1 that I would say is part of the winning product playbook. Number 2 would be a very clear positioning, right? Oftentimes what happens as developers, as product builders, I think this is something we tend to miss out on. We might have a great product, right? Step 1 is definitely coming towards a product that people really want. But once you have that, hey, how do we get to a clear positioning, right? Think about it here. I think you might have a great product, but unless you are able to bring out these to the audience, to the members who really want it, I think there was a session on this earlier today as well. If people are confused about what you're selling to them, what you are bringing out to the market, they aren't going to buy, right? So very simply put, they see, they understand, they buy, right? Can we simplify it to exactly that? And the third one is something that we'll go deeper into is how do we go market with this, right? So we figured out a great product. We figured out a product that people really want. We figured out the positioning. But now there are 2-3 different ways of doing it, right? When we start bootstrapping this, say you're not venture backed right now, you don't have $10 million in the bank to do like a great launch. And like Jivraj said, I think having worked across the spectrum, first up with Indistractable, right? $0 spent on marketing, over 10 lakh downloads today with 0 employees. It's just the two of us, right? So my co-founder does the building, and it's a freemium product. So of course, it's a funnel, right? Vivek also shared that earlier. He's doing a content plus a biz on top of it. We have a content essentially, which is our product. We have the community that follows through. And then for those members who really enjoy the product, they go on to the premium layer. That's as simple as what the product is. You will figure out funnels in your business, right? We were not venture backed, at least for this product. In under a year, I think cracked the ASO, figured out what keywords really worked, built out a really strong early community of people who went and pushed out the product for us, right? They really raved about it, gave us great Twitter reviews, helped us. There are a couple of platforms which we'd love to go deeper into, including indie hackers, including product hunt, including beta lists. So if you're building consumer products, or if you're building 0 to 1 product, and you really want to test it before throwing marketing dollars at it, I think great platforms today, which I think have helped us a lot. So yeah, I think that's a 3-step strategy. Whether it's a 0 to 1 product or building products at scale, I think this is something that's really helped us.
Awesome. I think some very crucial pointers there in terms of product building, right? But I think as we go into the crux of what we want to discuss, which is say that, okay, you figured out a product that people essentially need. There is a problem statement at hand. You're building it, but you're stuck with how to launch it, right? Because you need to get it right. Very traditionally, we've looked at launches that throw a lot of marketing dollars into it. There is a lot of gimmicks in terms of public relations and media, right? The world is changing, and you have been one of the proponents of community-led growth. You have been a proponent of launching successful products for 0 marketing spend by having a very thriving community. Talk to us, before we go deeper into the channels of the launch, right? Talk to us about what comprises as winning, right? How is it, like, what are the important components of understanding what winning means? And then we'll go deeper one layer to understand how to get there.
Absolutely. And I think community-led growth is the future. We've all seen, the numbers behind, say, 40% of your ad spend is going towards Facebook and Google, right? And that's why maybe number one, due to the pandemic, communities have definitely accelerated. It's always been there. It's not new. But today, because of number one, I think because of the pandemic, number two, because of the advent of Web3, right? Every Web3 product comes with a very, very strong, thriving community and incentives built in, right? So these are 2 reasons you're seeing communities all around, and maybe abuse as well. But it's not going back anywhere, right? So this is the future. I think, call it social media 3.0, call it community-led growth. I think every single company, and in fact, there are numbers, right? Up until 2017, I think only about 18% SaaS companies had a community layer. Today, this number is at 82%, right? So there's been a huge, every single SaaS company out there is figuring out whether, hey, do I want to build an early beta users community? Do I want to build a customer support community? Do I want to build a larger funnel which brings in my ICP? That is the community I want to build, nurture them. So different kind of communities you can figure around. For us, it's been really, really useful. For example, at the product folks, the last 7 launches that we've done, 6 of them have ranked number 1 on Product Hunt, right? And this is a global audience. Again, all thanks to the community we've built. We've seen really, really successful communities on the D2C side. Currently, I'm helping a bunch of other communities which are early stage product builders, right? They haven't even figured building out, okay, this is the exact product we want to build, but hey, can we set up the community? Can we understand from our users what is it that they really want? Of course, then, nurture these people, maybe give them back some of your premium features for free. They are the ones that are going to bring in the next layer of members for you. They're going to bring the next layer of features that you should be building. I think nurturing community, of course, this is not an overnight game. Again, a disclaimer. It is not a performance marketing campaign where you can turn on the tap and maybe see sales numbers next month, right? So that is not going to happen. But if you have a longer term, a mid to longer term mindset, and you can spend 6 to 12 months on this, I think there is no going back, right? So if you are investing into something, and like you mentioned, I think it's a myth, right? We all think, okay, hey, we need to do like these extravagant launches, and that's what we've seen, right? The last few years have been a market fueled by VC dollars. You see tons and tons of these, whether they go into coupons, whether they go into great launches, whether it's influencer marketing. Yes, if you have the means, it's great. And there is a time for this, right? Once you've figured out, hey, okay, this is working, we need to double down on this, and we need to reach out to a lot more people in a shortest period of time. great, right? It works. But spending that too early is somewhere we're seeing what is happening. When the market shifts is where we're seeing a lot of companies struggle. Okay, hey, they haven't reached the product market fit yet. And this is where people get stuck, right? So if you are in that 0 to 1 stage, nurture communities, take your time, right? Don't get driven by what the market says. It will take some time, but it is a huge moat that you will be owning.
Absolutely. I think the future definitely is so much in terms of community-led growth, and we're seeing early signals of it. And sustained communities build such amount of consumer love that it definitely stands the test of time, which is where new age consumer brands are definitely winning. Now, I think going one layer deeper, right? When we talk about a successful launch, if you had to give us like a very quick step-by-step process of, channels of distribution, where should you focus on, how should you plan it, what are the metrics to track, right? Because launches can tend to get very fuzzy. You can tend to focus on things that may not eventually make sense, things that may not eventually convert to business to begin with, right? So if you can give us a deep dive into, okay, now that I have the product, now that I know I want to build a community, I want to launch 3 months from today. How am I going to do that as a business owner of consumer products?
Fair enough. I think let's take again a $0 strategy to this. Of course, there will be some spends that you might do on content, building a really interesting graphic presentation, etc. But to get started, I think break this down into 4 things. Firstly, I think figure out the value proposition around your product. It doesn't have to be a perfect product, but at least what you're testing with. I think the definition of a minimum viable product has evolved over time, right? You cannot go with back in the day, for example, Dropbox launched with just a landing page with a form, and they got about 70,000 registrations overnight, right? Really interesting video, which showed the value prop. But is that something that's going to work today? Maybe, maybe not, right? It's been 10 years to this, right? We've all heard about this example. It worked really well for them, but might not work out today, right? You need to take that one step ahead. So I think first bit, definitely figure out around your early product, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but at least a version that puts out what you really want to solve for, right? That becomes the first one. Next one is around the user base, right? If I were to launch a product today, it is not just about, hey, whichever channel, like for example, if you are active or you're building a product where if it's a professional user base, LinkedIn or Twitter might work for you, right? If you're a D2C brand, maybe Instagram's your channel, right? So figure out that one channel that works for you. Oftentimes we as early stage founders want to be across all channels, right? That will come with time, but figure out 1 or 2 channels that work for you and then go ancillary, right? So second bit is figuring out which channel works for you. Depends on where your audience is at. If it's execs, for example, maybe they're very, very active on their email itself, right? Figure out a channel that works to get to where they are sitting at. Third up is how do you start prepping for the launch, right? On these channels that you are at, for us, for example, Twitter and LinkedIn have been great because ours is a professional audience. And this is the audience that we funnel to whichever platform we launch in, right? So if it's a professional audience, there are tons of playbooks for this. Be okay to experiment, right? Take a playbook, be okay to tweak that, be okay to experiment with that based on what product you're working on, right? So that would be the third one. The fourth one is prepping this audience that you've been able to nurture, right? So whether you have an early stage community, whether you have an social platform where you've been nurturing, maybe you've been funneling down some email leads, right? And you've been sending some newsletters, or whether you've just been growing a following. Like Vivek said, I think they've been growing a great top of funnel, right? Whether it's on YouTube or Instagram. Ensure that they know about it, right? It is not about that a launch is okay, hey, we do something extravagant on our social media and people are going to come for it, right? That's not going to happen. You need to ensure that you have some amount of leverage, some amount of this that is said to your early users so that they can help you while your launch comes through. And there are tons of playbooks around this as well, right? That would be my third step. And last step is that it's an iterative process. Launch is not just about doing it once. I think there are successful launches always take multiple steps. Ensure that once you launch, once you come out with a new feature, features can also be launched again, right? So there's always going to be a 2.0, there's always going to be a 3.0 that you're launching. It is not just a one-time process. I think successful launches would be broken down. I would break that up into four different steps.
Lovely. I think that gives us a clear-cut framework to approaching launches, especially multiple launches, right? Today, the new age companies will have feature launches, will have multiple upgrades, and that becomes so crucial as well. I think, again, going a step deeper, right? You spoke about product hunt, and that's something that's very, very new in at least the new age companies, right? 2 days back, we were discussing this backstage, that there were two companies from India on a global platform on top of the product, right? One is an infrastructure company which is winning in its market, 100 ms, and the other is Thredo, which is a community-based infrastructure platform, right? Suhas here has multiple times led successful launches on Product Hunt. If you can, give us a deep dive specifically on why Product Hunt works, how you've nurtured your Twitter audience to also play a role in this Product Hunt success, and how does this entire community angle play into Product Hunt? I think that'll be something super unique for the audience, and that'll be something where your strengths really play to get it. Yeah.
100%. I think if you haven't discovered Product Hunt yet, do definitely check it out. This is a platform that's existed for a couple of years now, built in the Valley, sold out to AngelList, and they're a very, very thriving community of early users, right? Especially if you're testing out a product, mostly software products, yes, but if you have an audience that you need to nurture from the Valley, great place for B2B companies, for SaaS companies, like you mentioned, infrastructure companies, right? So if you're building something in this space and you want to test or you want to bring in your early audience, do check out this platform. It's been super successful for us, I think, for 2-3 different reasons. You mentioned Twitter. I think Twitter is a great funnel for Product Hunt, mainly because of the user base, right? The kind of users that are sitting on Twitter are very, very similar to your early users who will be there on Product Hunt, right? And Product Hunt, for those who haven't come across earlier, is a platform where you discover new products every day. If you like that product, you go upvote it, right? And if you come in the top 5, then I think there's a huge push. I think they feature you in their newsletter across their socials, which runs to the tunes of millions of subscribers that they already have amassed, right? So, and this is completely free, right? You are getting a user base, you're getting to reach a user base that's completely free. 2 examples that Jivraj shared, I think they got tons and tons of subscribers and this was 2 days ago. Both companies building from India on a global stage, coming 1 and 2, right? Couple of strategies that have worked for us. Yes, of course, we have a thriving community today, so it becomes a lot easier, but this community has taken time to nurture, right? So if you have the time and investment, definitely build a community of your early believers, your early lovers of your product. They are the ones that are going to seed, or the ones who are going to help you leverage your launch, right? And this can be for any platform. It doesn't really have to be for Product Hunt. Wherever you launch, you need some of them seeding this for you, right? Number 1 would be to build that early believers community. Second, prep for the launch, right? Again, I saw both these companies and it takes a week, right? You probably have to get the narrative right? The positioning right. So that people who are coming to your product for the first time understand what it is all about, right? Try building in some features, some discount coupons, etc., so that when they come on your platform, they also feel incentivized to check out your product. There are tons of product being launched every day. Why should they spend time on checking out your product, right? That would be number 2. Number 3, again, figure out whether Product Hunt is for you, right? Sometimes you might realize, okay, hey, they've done 6 great launches, they've built out a community and gotten great number of members from there, but it's not working out for me. Yes, that is completely possible. Imagine if you are an enterprise solution, right? Very, very high ticket sales. You might not get direct sales from here. You might just get some amount of leads from here, right? So define what is success for you. For us, it was very clear that we wanted the top of funnel, people discovering our community, and every launch we did was a value add, right? We realized, okay, even if they don't come back to our community, the launch that we do, the product that we give on Product Hunt needs to add value, right? Very, very simple for us. It doesn't have to be a core product, right? It can be a side product which you launch just to enable the top of funnel. So once that was done for us, I think subsequent launches became easier because you provided value upfront, right? That would be 3. Slowly over time, I think content and community go hand in hand, right? It's not possible on day 1, but you need to ensure you have this top of funnel always working for you. Again, like some of our earlier speakers mentioned, this doesn't need, it takes some more time, yes, for sure, right? I'm not talking about performance marketing budgets here, but build that content layer and a community. Community is essentially nurturing that layer, right? So these will go in the long term. I think these would be my top 4 points, especially for a Product Hunt launch. 5th one is engage as much as possible, right? We as users, we as an audience love engaging with a founder or with engaging with the person who's building behind it rather than a brand. So try being real. I think there is lots and lots of layers that people are adding on their social media. So if you can be authentic, I think that really helps you break through this. So that would be my top 5 points.
Awesome. I think that's again super comprehensive and tactical at the same time. I'm sure if anybody of you are hoping to use Product Hunt in the future, Suhas is always a tweet away. So feel free to leverage that to your resource. I think this has been fascinating, right? And as we close this, if I were in the audience, I would be wondering, you do all of this, you figure out a great marketing plan, you figure out a great launch. What does that do to my business, right? And I think a fitting end to what has been a great conversation will be, Suhas, if you could paint us a picture of, okay, I got my product right, I got my launch bang on as well. What does that do to my business, right? What are ways in which businesses leverage successful product launches? I think that would be a great end. And I think this has been a great audience, but feel free to ask any questions that you have for Suhas. Suhas is an expert on the subject, and I'm sure he'd be happy to take any of your questions. So over to you for the last one.
Yeah, I think we're talking about a myth, right? Imagine getting your product perfect and getting a product launch perfect. I would love to see if anyone in this room has come across such a situation, because that is something all of us are striving towards for, right? Like I mentioned, I think it is an iterative process. Sometimes you might get like a great product there, but the timing might not be right. And we've seen great examples, right? Google Glass, for example, great product, maybe too early into the market. Some similar examples that we're seeing today, some products that have massive distribution, but a very leaky funnel, right? So I think this is something that we need to take care about. Imagine if you come to a stage that Jivraj mentioned, hey, you have a great product and you've had a great launch, then I think it is about subsequently figuring out, okay, hey, how do I nurture this? Maybe it is upselling, maybe it is going horizontal onto different products. How do I maximize my business from here? Sometimes you might get a great top of the funnel, but these are not users who are converting and buying your product, right? So there might be different things that you might have to figure out on top of this version. But I'm hoping and praying that many of us in this room come to the position that Jivraj shared.
Awesome. No, I think that's been wonderful. And I think just briefly adding on to that, having a clear CTA and knowing what the expectations from the launch are just adds to the cherry. So I think trying to optimize for those metrics can be super helpful. But this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Suhas, for your time. I think this has been lovely. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Feel free to direct them towards us. Please.
Basically, when we talk about a product, it could be a product which is innovation by itself. And, it is something new for the market.
Actually, it's not clear, sorry.
Yeah, like, one could be a product which is itself an innovation. It's a completely different thing. It could be disruptive. It could be anything else. That's one part. Second thing, you already have, say, a product like Zoho, which is something like a CRM. It is much more than a CRM.
Voice is not clear. Sorry, but voice is not clear maybe from where we are sitting.
Can I just speak?
Yeah, maybe without the mic. Yeah. Yeah. You can repeat the question.
Zoho is maybe CRM is part of the Zoho. Now there could be another 30, 40 products more which is also a thing. So today I want to launch a CRM for only a crowded market. So in a crowded market, like you're talking about the minimum viable product. So you can create a minimum viable product far less than what the
Great question, right? This is what I mentioned by how MVPs have evolved. For me, 2 or 3 questions here, especially in the CRM space. Let's take that as an example, right? One thing that we're seeing today is verticalized CRMs that are coming through. Zoho has probably built a great product and for an Indian audience, right? There are, for example, HubSpot is a great global product, but still Zoho found its base with an Indian user base playing on the cost, right? Then Freshworks came in, built another CRM of their own. So what we're seeing today is verticalized CRMs, right? And what I think is a space, especially in the CRM space, is can you build a CRM specific for a specific audience, right? It might be, and I'm seeing, in fact, one of our friends is building a product, which is a CRM for creators, right? We see lots of Instagram influencers now trying to sell. Can we build a CRM for them? Build a very simple version of it, right? So I think verticalize it, number one. MVP here, how it will differentiate, right? MVP no longer is a crude looking product just to test out your hypothesis, right? I feel that is the old version of it. people want to see at least a finished product. It is no more about, hey, can I just attach my Google Forms here and a simple looking solution? So I think you will have to spend a little more time at least building out a decent looking product, because people have come down to the UI, right? It might solve their needs, but if there's something that is parallel, retention becomes super hard. And that's what I think gets missed out. It is okay to spend maybe 2-3 months. Don't spend very extensively 6-12 months building out a fully featured product. No, simple features, verticalize, figure out that one market, go directly on that market, not horizontal SaaS, especially in CRMs. If you're building another horizontal CRM, very, very difficult to compete. But vertical CRMs, for sure, on MVP, spend a couple of months, at least from what our experience has been seeing, spend a couple of months building out that initial version. It has to be a little good looking in today's market. That definition of MVP is gone. I think visual is something now a lot of people are expecting, even if it's business users, right? It's no more just consumers who are expecting a great UI. It is business users as well. And yeah, I think testing out, I think similar frameworks work. Whether you're going community approach, whether you're going directly reaching out. For example, I think Udit, who spoke in the morning, he's building first sales, right? Using first sales, you can touch out just, so that becomes the MVP approach, right? MVP is, hey, how do I test it out in the least possible time, in the least possible money spent? That is how I feel the definition of MVP has evolved.
Yes.
I hope that answers.
Yeah. Hello. Yes, I have a question actually. My name is Ritesh, and I have a question with respect to product development and not really product launch. So when you begin to develop a product, what's your priority? Because product development itself is a very complex process, right? It takes a lot of resources, it takes a lot of time. What's your motto when it comes to developing the product fast so that you can launch it in the market?
Got it. So if I got the question right, how do you develop a product faster so that you can test it out? Would that be right?
That's right.
Awesome, thanks. 2-3 different strategies here, similar to what I was sharing earlier. I think no-code, the entire no-code wave that's come through, I think this at least helps reduce your development time. Second thing that I've seen is on the first version of your PRD itself, right? The product requirement document that you build. One mistake that we all do is we already try imagining what the final product will look like, right? So it's a very extensive document. We've done our user research. We figured out the market we want to build for. We probably see other products and, we compare our day 0 to a day 30 product, right? Someone who's been in the market for 3 years and we're like, okay, we need to build something that is as good as them. I think that is another thing that gets missed out, right? Keeping these two things in mind, today's market will not take a very simple form, for example, right? That will not work. But at the same time, we shouldn't be spending 6-12 months building a product that we've invested so much money in, so much developer resources. Somewhere in between is what we need to figure out, right? So 2-3 strategies that work here. Can you put together, depends on the kind of product you're building, right? If it's a consumer product, if it's a B2B product, if it's an internal product, right? Internal product, you'll usually have certain set of business users that you can chat with, understand requirements, and go out and build this. That becomes a slightly easier. Consumer products is where I think the challenge lies, right? You might have a great idea. You might build it out for a version of one person. Again, takes time to go out in the market, and put your product out there. And I think that's where I think Product Hunt and other great platforms help here, because it's $0 spent at least. If people are willing to use your product, right? Going deeper into, hey, how do we develop these products? 2-3 ways that I've seen right now work. If it can be built in no code, let's try that out, right? Even if it's an application, not just web apps today. I think there are platforms like Bubble, for example. This helps you in $99 test out a platform. And you can build something as good as the marketplace, right? So you can build an Airbnb, for example, today on Bubble. Templates are there, right? So if it's an app, if it's a internal tool, for example, check out Retool, check out Airbase, all of them have templates ready, right? If you're building a web app, again, Webflow, for example, in $29, you can put out your landing page out there, tweak it a little bit. They also have templates. So use some of these no-code at least to build a very nice looking version. Now, if you want to go complex, some of these will not work if you're building a hardware product, for example, right? If you're building a deep tech solution, these are not things that will work for that. I think I'd love to, chat one-to-one with you to understand what you're building and maybe go deeper into it. It is not possible for some of those products. There, I think we need to go our version, right? Maybe take a white label solution, go out in the market, test it out. If there is demand, then come out and build your solution, right? So before building, but I'd love to catch up one-to-one on that. I hope that helps. We're on time. Perfect.
Thank you so much again for being a wonderful audience.
Thank
In
you.
case you have questions, we are outside as well. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Huge shout out to Jivraj as well for hosting this. If you guys in the room want to check out any other business podcast, he runs one of the top, and he didn't speak about it. I'm just saying that he runs one of India's top business podcasts. It's called Indian Silicon Valley. So do check that out. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. Catch
Thank
you
you.
folks soon.